Hi again, it is Frank Tate with another video on IDI. This time it's on configuring logging in an assembly line for IDI. There are multiple different ways you can configure logging in IDI, and I'm just going to be covering the way I like to set up logging for an assembly line itself. And at the end of the video, I'll talk about a slightly mainly related topic about configuring logging for a solution or project. But I want to talk about just configuring logging for an assembly line. So I have IDI version 10 installed on Red Hat 9. And that's what we're going to be looking at here. I have one of the example assembly lines imported, or one of the example solutions imported. It's the XML parser solution, and the assembly line that I'm working with is the arbitrary deep XML parser assembly line. No big deal. And so normally when you run an assembly line, it's just going to log to the ibmdi.log file for the server, for the directory integrator server. And that's all fine. However, you may want that behavior to be a little different. For example, at my current client, or one of my clients, they have a bunch of different directory integrator servers running, and they need to consolidate their log files into a central location. And the best one way I figured out to do that is going through this process. So what I have is just want to show you the current configuration, which is in the command line. I am in opt IBM TDI. Well, I'll actually get rid of this directory. RF logs. So it's not even there, because I've been doing some testing. And there's nothing here. If I go to my solution directory, logs, that's where I have my ibmdi.log file, which is where stuff is going to be logged. So if I run this assembly line, let's just check on a couple of things, see what I have set up. I'll get to the detailed log in a little bit, but I need to turn that off right now. Cool. So I'm going to run this assembly line in the console, and notice the format here. It's a timestamp, then info, so the debug level, and then dash, and then the messages start. If I look in my ibmdi.log file, ibmdi.log, if I go to the end of the file, I'll see similar lines, but I also have in here the name of the project that's running, and I also have the assembly line prefaced with assemblyline.assemblylines, which is kind of ugly. But this is based on the formatting setup for ibmdi.log. So what I want to have is one file for each assembly line that I have. And so the way I'm going to set that up is in my assembly line, I'm going to click on Options and then go to Log Settings. And I'm going to zoom in on this so that we can see what's happening a little bit better. And I'm going to insert a new file roller appender logger. And so that's going to, it creates files up to a specified size, and then it adds a -1, -2, etc. To the older files. And you can specify however many you want to save. And that depends on the frequency with which the assembly line runs, etc. Now, the reason it puts in the ibmdi.log file the name of the assembly line is this %T here. So we're going to get rid of that so we don't have that in our log file, because this one is specific to this assembly line. But the neat thing that I wanted to show is this file path. You can actually click on the words file path and then put in JavaScript here. And I have some JavaScript over here in a buffer that I'm going to paste in here. And I have a link to my blog post on this in the description of the video. But basically, it's just setting a temporary name to be replaced at runtime so that it shows up appropriately in the GUI. And then what it'll do at runtime is it's going to set the actual log name to task.getParent.getName, which is the name of the project, concatenated with / and then task.getShortName, which is the name of the assembly line. And I'm going to return all of that with prepended with opt IBM TDI logs and with the suffix of .log. And I'm going to click OK. And notice here it shows the to be replaced at runtime. That value will be replaced at runtime, and we'll see it. So I'm going to click OK. And now we're back here. So I'm going to go back to there. And now when I run this assembly line, I have the same output in the console. But when I go to the terminal, I'm going to go to, I'm in up here. So I'm going to go 2 levels up, and notice I now have a logs directory. And in here, I have a directory named XML parser example, which is the name of my solution or project. And in here, I have a file name that's the exact same as the name of my assembly line, arbitrary deep XML parser. When I look at that guy, there we go. It's exactly what I saw on the screen. It doesn't have the assembly line or project name in here. It doesn't need to, since that's in the full path. But it's got the information we want. Now, what I do want to show, a couple of things more, is when you enable the detailed log for a connector, which you should when you're debugging, when you're going through your development phase, you do want to select detailed log so that when you run it, it's going to give you all this detailed output, including the scripts that are run and so forth. And all of that will show up in the log file also. So look at it again, and it's actually changed the name. So it's now this guy, log.1. So we'll look at that guy, and we will see that it's printed out now, all of the stuff that we saw in the GUI, all of the details. Now, what's pretty cool about this is instead of having to remember to enable and disable this from the GUI every time you go from dev to prod, you can actually click on the words detailed log, and then you can use a property or you can use JavaScript so that you can dynamically set this property according to whatever you want, which is a pretty neat feature. Now, one other thing that I want to point out here is this dynamic file name only works when you're editing the log for the assembly line itself. So in the assembly line options, log settings. If I go to the solution itself or the project and right click and select solution logging and settings, I can set up a log here also. However, it doesn't have access to the same objects that the assembly line does. So if we put in a similar logger here, file roller appender, or really the exact same logger, the file path, we're going to again click on file path itself, and advanced JavaScript, we're going to put the exact same code in here. And we will save this guy. Now, when we run it, it's going to be a little bit different. All of that works the same. But when we come back to the command line and go up to, I'm in opt IBM TDI logs. And what I have in here is a file name to be replaced at runtime.log. So the JavaScript didn't expand as it did with the assembly line itself. So just something to keep in mind. And like I said, there are lots of other ways to set up logging. This is just one that I like. And what you can do at this point is anytime I create a new assembly line, I'm generally copying an existing one because it's got some amount of code that I want to reuse. And when I do that, it will also copy the log that's been set up for that assembly line. So you'll just end up over time with some number of templates that you can start with. And if you just always remember to set that logger to have the dynamic characteristic of including the project and the assembly line name for the log file name, it makes life a little bit easier. You can always find the log file fairly easily. So that's all I have for today. Please subscribe to my channel so you can get some more, you can see more content like this when it comes out. Share this on social media, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you soon with some more videos. Thanks a whole lot.